This presentation is for the literature review, Dr. Harvey's class. It follows the APA format. This is the agenda, also the instructional method, the objective, which is theming, synthesizing, analyzing from the perspective of framework theory. This is the lesson plan and student objectives, which utilizes the Breuer model. This is presentation method and plan. The plan actually incorporates assignment 2, assignment 3, and assignment 4. This table of contents. Basically, the introductory framework is to cover the purpose, scope, preparation, organization, scheming, framing, and coding of a literature review using certain analytical models, which are identified here. We've used the Spell-It model to assist in the analysis and evaluation of the framework. In addition, we review the topics, the themes, and variants, and the synthesizing and connectivity of the literature review that's being studied. The models basically force these 8-step processes for review. Primary focus is on organizing the literature review and how to identify a literature review's introduction, critical access of the information, establish authority, defend findings, and balance the evidence. The statement of the problem is why use literature reviews, and how is one effectively constructed. This is a writer's checklist, which is produced by the dissertation journey under Robert's in Robert's book. It's a 17-point checklist. The checklist was used to identify the areas that should be reviewed and to help as a guide in the literature review itself. This is the statement of purpose and what we hope to accomplish in the study of the literature review. The significance of the study is to understand that literature reviews are critical to the purpose of a dissertation and to answer these questions. Why are literature reviews important? Will I know one when I see one? And how much weight should I place on a literature review in my dissertation? This is a statement of limitations. Delimitations. And the assumptions. The key assumption is that writing and publishing bring recognition and authority. A literature review basically has to deal with the central profile questions. And so we need to know what we need to identify what we need to know and where we need to start. So I started with a pre-study, an exploration of research. The pre-study involved a critical review of the texts provided by Dr. Harvey, to include some others. So writing empirical research reports was the first one I looked at. Then I looked at Huff's writing for scholarly publication. And I've identified certain key points associated with each one of the reviews. Also writing for dissertation 15 minutes a day. I identified 4 key takeaways in that particular book. Then next I looked at preparing literature reviews, and there were 6 key points in that one. All of these helped prepare me for taking Dr. Polinsky's dissertation and enabling me to identify the critical construction and critical aspects of how she put together her Chapter 2 literature review. This is another reference that I reviewed prior to starting the project. And of course, I ended up looking at the APA manual to ensure that I was keying on things that the APA thought were important in a literature review. I guess the key thing here that kind of struck me funny was the comment listed number 15, which I'll let you read for yourself. Okay, well, so having looked at all those different pre-studies, this is what came out of it. Most common references were to relevance and logic, to conversational flow, comprehensiveness, organization, synthesis, subject analysis, conversational style, essay, and theming. And so these were 17 of the most common topics that were discussed. As a result, what you see are the top 5 listings which I've just gone over. So using these listings, I've taken the opportunity then to go into Dr. Polinsky's dissertation, Chapter 2, and see if these actually apply. In addition, I used the Spell It model to identify critical issues in chapters 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. The key here is that external environments do influence the direction and focus of the research, and that before you initiate a literature review, you need to frame the collection of data, analysis, and evaluation. Once that's done, then you can actually move into identifying the critical or significant data in terms of how a literature review has been structured. In this particular case, this is how Dr. Polinsky broke down her emphasis. This is a breakdown of how Dr. Polinsky weighted the variables. The top variable was competencies, and then the all the way down to the lowest variable, which was effectiveness. Breakdown of chapter by chapter where the weightiness of the dissertation was placed. She obviously put quite a bit of weight on Chapter 2, 26%, and quite a bit of weight on Chapter 5 and Chapter 4. The primary themes that she focused on, the title was The Next Generation of Community College Presidents, Critical Characteristics, Competencies, and Professional Experiences. She focused on presidents as well as selection, and these are the characteristics or subvariables in each one of those themes. Well, we take these and we start to map these against a certain theory of investigation or analysis, so that we can determine just how influential these focus points were to the development of her evidence in the literature review. So I framed my analysis using Lewin's force field model, and I also used again the Spell It model. And then I wanted to identify that within her theme she used the Delphi method, which is basically a subject matter expert survey and collection of narratives, which she then placed both in a qualitative as well as a quantitative format for evaluating the outcomes. These became primary drivers or influences to her lit review. The findings are as indicated. They're broken down to the materials that were used, the literature. These directed the search for the findings. So I used the existing literature on the subject as well as Dr. Plinsky's dissertation. And with those, I developed a sense of what was going on with the lit review. Characteristics, experiences, challenges, and competencies as related to the selection process. And then within the selection process, she identifies these characteristics or these variables: overview effectiveness, committees, consultants, effective searches, and effective selection criteria. And then lastly, we identify key codes or key phrases which are supportive to each of the themes. This gets mapped as driving themes, or rather themes, and then driving forces behind each theme. This is a mapping basically of topic 1. Let you take a look at that for just a second. As you can see, experiences, competencies, and challenges and characteristics are listed on the table. These form a basic circular discussion from top to bottom when applied or reviewed in the spell-up. She starts off with characteristics and goes to competencies, and she talks about experiences, and she ends up coming back to competencies and technologies. Again, this is with regard to her topic 2, which is president qualifications for college presidency positions. On her topic number 2, it's a similar breakdown in terms of the theme and variable analysis. This has to do with the selection process, and again she focuses on characteristics, experiences, challenges, and competencies. A total of 28 citations were used in the Chapter 2 Lit Review. And we're going to break those down so that you can see how many citations or references were used to reinforce each of the key variables. This is a table or a matrix that shows you that particular breakdown. As you can see, leadership had 10, characteristics had 13, challenges had 13, and competencies had 4. It gives you a little bit of an idea as to how she weighted her references and citations against each of the key variables. This breakdown shows you evidence. It's an evidence evaluation matrix that shows the author, and it shows the number of times the author was cited, how it was used to support the research questions, and then the theme, variable, instrument that was used, whether it was quantitative or qualitative, and how it was supported, what the research approach was. In the summary of finding Plinsky's literature review, I found that she successfully applied theory, concepts, and data collection using a Delphi method, and balanced evidence supporting the position, and then she applied a mixed method, about 71% qualitative as well as 25% quantitative. She applied a balance of evidence to each topic and a balance of evidence to each theme. In conclusion, the frameworks for the study were helpful. It really helped me get through the 34-page, 37 pages of Chapter 2 and make sense out of it. So the readings that I used to do my research also gave me great guidance. The findings were, are literature reviews important? The answer is yes. And then what elements make up an effective literature review? Well, it's the significance of relationships between the application's effective framework and a checklist, well-synthesized and integrated information that flows in support of the research inquiry. And then how would I know when I see this? Yes, because I have the frameworks to help me identify it. And can a dissertation be supported by reviews alone? The answer is yes. And then how much weight rather should I place on a literature review in my dissertation? That really depends upon the topic, the research, and the nature of the inquiry. And associated trends in history, as present studies have been conducted, and the relevant need to establish authority for the findings is required. Implications of the study. Literature reviews do in fact support the nature of research, and they also relate to scholars in the field. My observations are that they're driven by external environments, they're critical in connecting and communicating with other scholarly works and findings, and all major contributors of evidence. That basically wraps up the presentation. Here are the references that I used. Thank you for your time.